was not going to watch Scott Pilgrim Takes Off at all because Scott was barely in the show. So I felt like it wasn't going to be as good as the original story, or like I was just afraid that the show was just going to just disrespect the source material entirely, like a lot of other shows tend to do. I was just like, who let them cook, bro? Why are they doing this? And then as I was doing my little anti Scott Pilgrim Takes Off thing, I actually saw people give it good ratings. They was liking the show. They was liking it. And I was like, huh. I was like, fuck. Man, is it actually good? I was actually so conflicted to watch it. But then I just, I was like, you know what? All right. Okay. I will watch it. I will watch it. And boy, was I in for a ride. All right, so if you wasn't aware, Scott Pilgrim has a anime out on Netflix called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. It is a new show that has been making the rounds online, and a lot of people are talking about it. Like I said, I was reluctant to watch it because I like Scott. I mean, I like this. I like the story of Scott. Scott himself is, he's an acquired taste. Like, to me, he's very similar to Rudius, for example. If you don't know who Rudius is the main character of an anime called Mushoku Tensei, and they're very similar in the aspect where they're the characters where they are complete degenerates in the beginning and they grow to become better people as the story progresses. But because they're degenerates, there's going to be a lot of people who first see their character and then be immediately turned off by it. Like, I can't do it. I mean, these guys are horrible. And it's like, yeah, that's fair. I just wish people would give Mushoku Tensei and Scott Pilgrim a chance, because it actually gets better. Their characters get better. But that being said, the point is that this show really surprised me. It genuinely surprised me. I was like sitting there watching. I was like, huh. This is actually kind of good. They cooking right now. Like, they're actually in the studio, in the kitchen, cooking up a 4-5 course meal. I'm like, yo, I'm having a good time right now. The show or the anime has become kind of like a character study, right? Like, the story already was a character study of Scott, but it's even more so now because it actually feels like it was 100% realized. In this anime, spoilers, by the way, spoilers. I'm letting you know now, I'm talking about spoilers. Okay, so if you don't want to get spoiled and you don't want to watch Netflix because you don't want to pay for them or whatever, there's a website somewhere around here. I don't know. I can't find it. So Scott leaves mid episode 1, right? And the rest of the story is told through Ramona's eyes, through Ramona's point of view. And I wholeheartedly love that. I love that they did that. That is such a good idea. To see Ramona's point of view of everything really puts into perspective what type of person Scott is, right? Good and bad. And it really does help with Ramona's character as well, because Ramona herself, I feel like Ramona's character wasn't fully like fleshed out enough in Scott's original story. So I like the fact that we get that here. And genuinely, there's a lot of good comedy in this. Like, it's actually funny. Like, it's actually like, I just was sitting there watching. I was like, wow, this is funny. It's actually funny. There's actually good jokes here, right? And the music is on point. Obviously, it's Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim has some of the best music it's like the best like original music in media for me. Because I like rock bands, and I like the type of music anyway. So it just, everything worked out. It's beautiful. But yeah, we got Ramona. Her character got really fleshed out here, and it was good. And I love the fact that she got a chance to really like reconcile with her past mistakes. That really does hammer home the point of this show, I think, is that they kind of like flipped it, where it's like, okay, you already know about Scott's story. let's talk about Ramona. And the way that they did that was in a way to where they can't really flesh out Ramona's story when Scott was in the picture, because Scott is such a big presence in his story to the point where I think it kind of like drowns out all the other characters. They don't have a time to really like be fleshed out as much as Scott, you know? And with Scott being gone, they all have a chance to really like grow and like take time to like really focus on themselves, you know? And it really does. I think it, for me, it also hammers home the point that Scott was such a big force in everybody's lives to the point where like when he left, it left a hole in people, but at the same time, it kind of like helped people move on. It helped people get better as people. You know, they didn't have to worry about Scott all the time, and everything wasn't revolving around Scott's. You know, and Scott himself didn't even realize that until the end of the show. You know, I'll get to that. The animation was top notch, beautiful. It's just it's exactly what I expected to see from a Scott Pilgrim anime. It's like exactly like from paper to animation. Beautiful, honestly. Then yeah, so now we're going to talk about the characters. Ramona, talk about Ramona. So young Neil, this is the first one I wrote on my notes. So I'm just going to go down the list. So young Neil is interesting because he was barely a plot point in my opinion from what I remember, and at least in the movie. Because like for example, okay, so I didn't. Oh, so I guess I should have said this earlier, but I didn't watch. Or I didn't read all of the manga or the graphic novel. I didn't read all of the graphic novel, so I can't really say that of everything. But I do. I did watch the movies, and I did watch or the movie, and I did watch the that I played some of the game. So I'm kind of like a casual Scott Pilgrim fan, if anything. But I kind of got like through osmosis and kind of like seeing people talk about it. I kind of just naturally got spoiled with stuff as time goes on. So I kind of, I kind of know, right? I know. I just haven't like taken the time to like get the book and read it. That's a lot harder to do than like an anime or a show or something. Because you actually have to like buy it. That takes money. Speaking of money, if you want a pair of these headphones, link is in the description. Go check them out. They're really useful. And they're not even that expensive compared to other headphones. So I feel like you're getting good quality for good prices. Anyway, so Young Neil is underrated as fuck, in my opinion. I like Young Neil. He's great. I think he is definitely like he's the I don't know. He's a character that's just like I just like watching him on screen. He's just funny to watch on screen because he's like I won't say he's dumb, but like he definitely has like an IQ of like under 100. But he's so funny because he's just living his life, man. He doesn't question things. He's just vibing, enjoying his time. I'm so proud of him. It makes me happy. Next, we got Wallace Wells, the menace himself. Okay, so Wallace is interesting because he was like a homewrecker, bro. He was a menace in this story. Like in this anime, he was a menace, bro. He did not care. He was like, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do because I can do it. I'm like, you go, girl. You go. Okay. I'm not 100% with you on engaging in home wrecking and allowing the guy to cheat on Envy, but without that part, everything else though, you go, girl. I love the little reference, not the reference, but I love the callback to when at first he was like, there's no such thing as sparks. He never believed in sparks. He just kind of just did everything just to do it. And then at the end of season one, he was like, he kissed a guy, and he was like, was that Sparks? And I was like, oh, that's wholesome. I love that. I'm not. That was so cute. I'm so proud of him. Good job, Wallace. You found the one. So Adams. Envy Adams is interesting because she kind of felt like I don't know, like she kind of was just kind of there. Like she didn't really have much like growth or anything. She was just there. I mean, besides the fact that her boyfriend cheated on her, but like, you know, there was nothing much new to her that I think was all that interesting. Like, I mean, she's still an interesting character, but like, she's a celebrity and she moved on from Sky. So like, I don't think it's that serious. I just think it's just interesting that she was playing Ramona in the movie, but Ramona was playing a stunt double of somebody else who was playing her. Like, it's I love those little like tidbits of information, little detail. Like that's it's kind of funny. Uh Ironic if anything. Next we have Roxy. Roxy was Ramona's ex, and I think of all the characters, Roxy seems like she didn't really care about what was happening besides besides dealing with Ramona. You know what I mean? Besides dealing with Ramona, everything else that happened, she was kind of just along for the ride because she just, hey, whatever, Like what did she do outside of like being a ninja? Is she in the what? Is she like an official ninja? Like is that her job? Like I'm just questioning how she's able to just be around. Same with other characters too, but Roxy more so because we didn't really even get to see like what her potential is. What's her job? What does she do? You know what I mean? Like what's her career path? You know what I mean? Like I was curious. It's just a curious thing. I was like kind of want to see what Roxy was gonna do as a career. Everybody else got it. Gideon is a millionaire and Patel is kind of like a theater kid and the twins were kind of like tech geniuses and stuff like that. So everybody else is like a celebrity. So like I just feel like it was kind of like one of those like Roxy could have had some more development on that side, but it's fine. She had development on the fact that her and Ramona made up and they were, kind of like, hey, we're cool now. We cool now. I understand where you're coming from. I get it. I like that. I like that whole thing. They had a whole fight about it. The fight, bro, the fight between Ramona and Roxy is probably the best fight in the whole show. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's probably the best fight. I'm biased though because I like movies, and it was taking place in a movie store, like a physical movie store, and there was like fighting, and as there was fighting, like Ramona was opening up portals to different movies and stuff, like, and they were just fighting between different movies. It was like it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch, like genuinely, and yeah, I don't think there was another fight that really was on the level of Ramona and Roxy. I genuinely I don't know. I'm trying to think, but I don't think there was a better fight than that. That was one of the best fights, like genuinely one of the best fights. And it was a fight of passion, if anything. It was a fight of passion and unrequited love. It was beautiful, honestly. Next, we got Julie Powers and Gideon Graves. So I put them two together because, well, they're dating, but Julie Powers, interesting character. I liked her in the movie. I liked her a little bit in the comics. Obviously, like I said, I didn't read all of the comics, so but I liked her enough. I like, like parts of her. Like I think for me, like Julie is a character where like I just didn't like I've known people like Julie in real life, and I'm not a big fan of those type of people personally. They're always angry for about some reason. It's just annoying. Okay, like that's literally just their resting emotion is anger. It's like yeah, no, okay, well, or not even anger, just like resentment or whatever. I don't know. It's just like some type of negative feeling. It's just, ugh. But that's why she works well with Gideon Graves or Gordon Goose, actually. That's his actual name, Gordon Goose. But Gideon was interesting here because Gideon lost his whole company, all of his companies and everything, and then he became homeless. And it was like, I love how the idea is like they're still evil, kind of, but like is like their vendetta or whatever, like that feeling, that anger inside of them wasn't directed at Scott anymore at the end of the show. It was directed at Patel, and Patel's was the anger was directed at Gideon. So it kind of was like it's like an interesting little back and forth. And then Julie's there to help out Gideon, and apparently there's like an after credit scene where like Gideon and Julie were coming up with like some some new game or whatever. I was like, what are they doing? What are they cooking? I don't, after this show, I'm curious what it is about. Are they gonna give us a season 2? I hope so. Let's hope it's as good as season 1. So the League of Evil Exes. So the League of Evil Exes as a whole is a interesting idea. I don't know if I ever talked about Scott Pilgrim on the channel. I don't think so. Yeah, I like what they did with the League of Evil Exes. Patel took it over, and kind of like they just kind of stopped being important because obviously like they kind of dealt with the League of Evil Exes by themselves. You know what I mean? Like it kind of like imploded on itself. So it kind of makes sense that like Scott or Ramona didn't really have to do much for it to happen. Scott just had to die. That's all. It's not like they care that much about Ramona. I mean, they did, but like not anymore, which can be argued is like kind of weird. But the point is, they had to focus on the Ramona storyline, okay, which is what I love. So Knives, okay, Knives, okay. So Knives is a interesting plot point, right? Obviously, it's always been a weird plot point since like the first comic book came out or the first like issue or whatever, you know, is like the first thing he's dating a high schooler is like, yeah, concerning. At the same time, it's also like the age of consent in other countries is different from America. So like it's a lot of it's like the American way of thinking of it is very like is scrutinizing it, but at the same time it's like if you go to other countries the age of consent is like 17, 16 sometimes, and it's like, hey, that's what they do over there, and I don't, that's what however, I don't condone it. I'm just saying like, that's what that's a different country. So you shouldn't lord your own country's values over a different country's values, but that's a whole nother topic. The point is that Knives as a character is interesting because I like how she naturally kind of comes to the conclusion that like she needs to just focus on herself and not be so like dependent on people, you know? I like that because it kind of like I don't know. I like it. I think it's good because for her like she kind of had to. There's not much to say about her though, to be honest, because it's just kind of like it's simple. We all know Knives. She's pretty open about how she feels about things. There's nothing too deep about it. It's just interesting to see her go through that mental journey. Also, she's a good musician, so like she wouldn't have known that if Scott was there. So that's one of the big pluses of Scott dying. Scott had to die for people to realize that they were people outside of Scott. Crazy. Next is Lucas Lee, the evil ex. So Lucas Lee, I like him. I think they had Chris Evans to come back and voice Lucas, which is great. I'm glad they had all the original actors from the movie to come back and play and voice act for the anime. It's genius. Great idea. I like Lucas Lee a lot. I think Lucas is one of those characters where I just kind of like root for him as much. I kind of root for him because obviously, yeah, he has his flaws, but like at the same time, like he's a likable guy. He's just trying to like figure out his life, and he's trying to like really. He doesn't want to be seen as not popular. I think a lot of people in that mental state in real life can relate to Lucas, right? A lot of people who don't want to be, who want to be famous, and when they get famous, they kind of like, they don't want to. They just want to like do what they do, and then the responsibilities of real life catches up with them, and then it hits them hard, and then it hit Lucas hard. So now, he got to deal with the repercussions of his actions. It's pretty cool though. I like his story. His fight against the paparazzi was so funny, dude. I love that fight. That's one of the more like funniest fights. One of the funnier fights. The fight between Ramona and Roxy was an emotional fight, and it was very emotional. It was very wholesome at the end, and it was just like, wow, that was refreshing. But the Lucas Lee fighting against the paparazzi was refreshing because it was nice to see the paparazzi get beat up. You know what I mean? Because the paparazzi sucks. And it was just fun. It was fun to watch Lucas just beat the shit out of paparazzi ninjas. It was great. So let's get into the heavier topics. Not heavier, but like let's get into the topics, like the actual topics about Scott and Ramona and their relationship as a whole. Because there are some people who are like Scott, where they mentally like they can't handle rough patches in relationships because number one, they haven't had that experience, and number two, they kind of like didn't anticipate it to be like this. You know what I mean? Like but he let himself fall so much in love with his character, with this person, that he didn't even like realize that he's young. Like, and it, like the show literally says it. Like he was young and dumb. Like Scott is just young and dumb. He just doesn't know. But that can lead into something worse if it goes unchecked, which it did happen in the show, which is a really old version of like the 50-year-old Scott that was like all buff. He looked like Ryu from Street Fighter mixed with like Heihachi from Tekken and shit. It was so funny to see it, but he just like worked out. It was like huge. I was like, I didn't know Scott could get that big. Holy shit. Pause. Interesting to see Scott, a young Scott, see his older self, what he could possibly become. I like the idea. The time travel idea was cool because it kind of made it kind of like fast forwarded Scott's progression and Scott's like maturity, because it kind of like he had to see himself at his worst so he can be his best now, right? And I find that really fascinating. I think some people probably would have to go through that just for them to change, where they have to see themselves absolutely at a worse state than they are now, just for so they cannot go down that path. But like it's kind of hard to do when you don't have a time travel machine. You know what I mean? So some people are just stuck in that mentality and they just never get out of it because they never had the chance to really like see how their actions are affecting others. And then yeah, and then also there's some people who are like Ramona, who they tend to run away from everything and they tend to like retreat and just go back to what they basically go back to status quo, right? And I relate to that a lot. I relate to Scott and Ramona in different ways because I think for me, Scott is like not Scott, Ramona is for when I go out into life, right? When I go out into the real life and I work a job or whatever, and then something happens that I don't like and that really like messes with me like mentally, I tend to withdraw from the situation and just leave and stay in my room, right? And then that's kind of like my way of trying to fix the situation instead of just saying, "Nah, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna stop running," you know? And that's kind of like something that Ramona's character kind of like shined a light on in my life, is like I need to like stop running from things because it's easy to run away. It's harder to stay, you know? And bars. That's the tough choice, right? Choosing between doing something that's easy versus doing something that's harder but will make you a better person in the future, you know? Everybody has to go through something that they have to make a serious decision, you know? All right, so let's talk about some theories. So one of the theories that I have is that Scott is autistic. I think a lot of people probably agree with me when I say that, but like I like he gives me autistic vibes. From I've been watching a lot of autistic videos and videos about autism, and I've been questioning whether or not I should self-diagnose myself as autistic, you know, and live by that fact instead of going to a professional, right? And then getting officially clinically told that I'm autistic. But the downside of that is that, you know, well, everybody's going to treat you differently because they're going to treat it as if it's like a mental disability that makes you dumb or something. I don't know. It's weird. The point is that I do think that Scott is somewhere in the spectrum. He's somewhere in there. He's somewhere in the spectrum, and I think that's the reason why he has such an issue with relationships, right? And what I wrote on is different for everybody, but the way he talks is a big indicator that he's neurodivergent in some way. And yeah, and one of the things that he said that he always loves to do is that he has like a hyperfixation. One of his hyperfixations is Sonic the Hedgehog, or talking about media or some you know what I mean, talking about like pop culture stuff. I think that's interesting. But yeah, he also like when somebody is talking to him, like the old Scott, the way he talked was very much like a person who was jaded, but they don't know how to like express their emotions correctly, right? So she was talking to him, but he was just sitting here like correcting her on things that he thought was wrong, right? Like she was talking about some like she was like trying to tell him something, and then she used an analogy with like a popular character or something, and he corrected her, right? Or he corrected her about the people he was fighting and all this stuff. So I just think that that's a whole thing right there, where it's like, yeah, he's kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just feels very like it feels like he got a bit of the tism, you know what I mean? He got a little bit of the tism in him, you know? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. You kind of like notice it a little bit, but that doesn't mean he's actually autistic. It just means that he has characteristics that can be labeled as autistic like. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's actually autistic because he's a fictional character, but you get the point. He was too in his own head and so depressed that he didn't even realize how many mistakes he's made up until it was too late. That's true. That was old Scott's problem, you know? Like literally Ramona, the old Ramona was like, "Yo, like we could have fixed this if you would have just, you know, came back and was like, "Hey, I'm sorry. Let's try again." You know what I mean? Cuz she genuinely loves him. It's just like he just, you know, like he just keeps deluding himself into thinking that he's not the issue, right? And he thinks that everybody's out to get him, you know, and that's a dangerous road to go down, obviously. And Scott had to see that. He had to see young Scott had to see old Scott do this so he can realize that this is how he could possibly end up if he doesn't keep himself in check, you know? And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. Then Ramona ran away from all her lovers until she found someone that she truly loved, only for him to take shit too far and become obsessed with fixing a problem in all the wrong ways. And that's kind of Ramona's whole like MO, I guess. It's kind of her whole thing, right? I think that's kind of like the whole part of the story. I don't know what else to say to that. That's just how I observed it. It's interesting that it seemed like when Scott died, everyone was better off, but at the finale, everyone was even better now that Scott realizes his own mistakes. This is true. Like I feel like when Scott died, everybody had a chance to like think about themselves because he was so depressed and tore up that he just was dragging everybody down with him. And now that he realized his mistakes, he's able to deal with it better. He's able to get help, have them help him, and it's great. It's great. Honestly, this show is so wholesome. I love it because I'm so happy that Scott wasn't completely forgot about in the story. But him hidden as a character was very important to the story, even though he wasn't in the story. It's kind of like Gen V. It's like Gen V. I just realized that. It's like Gen V. It's literally just like Gen V, to where like Golden Boy wasn't in most of the show, but his spirit was felt. His, the consequences of his actions was felt throughout the whole show. Same thing with Scott. Scott was barely in the show, but his spirit lived on in the show, and his actions has consequences, and the things that he did before he died has, you know, consequences. Everybody's actions have consequences. So I think it was really peak. Honestly, it's really good. It was really good. They really did really well with this show, and I am happy to see what else they make. If they make a season 2, let's see what they do with season 2. You know, I just don't think that it needs a season 2. I really hope they just keep it at one season, and just because it's popular doesn't mean you need to add more seasons to it. You know, I just think shows like Scott Pilgrim and just a lot of shows in general do not need more than one season. If the season finale feels like something where I can just, I'm happy, I'm good, wipe my hands clean of the show, I watched it, it's beautiful, I'm happy. You know what I mean? I don't need more. You know, I think Scott Pilgrim is one of those franchises where you don't need more. Maybe for the game, maybe they could update the game and add more and add like the stages and stuff, you know, to the game. But like other than that, like I don't think I really feel the need to want more story. Like I think everything just makes sense. Like everything is pretty wrapped up in a nice cute little bow. It's great. And nice little star-shaped bow. If I hear that there's rumors, or if I hear that they might make a season 2, I will be concerned. But I'll stay hopeful, because if they actually make a good season 2, hey, I'm here for it. I'm just a little concerned if they do decide to make a season 2, considering how well season 1 ended. I don't want to taint that by having a below par season 2. Anyway, if you like this and all that stuff, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Scott Pilgrim on Netflix, or actually the website that I give you on the, watch it for free. Literally, it's like there's no ands, if, buts about it. It's free. You can watch it for free. Or if you want some headphones, link in the description, check it out. It's not free, you have to buy the headphones, but they're worth it if you really need some good headphones, like genuinely, and they're cheaper. So have fun. Peace.
I done gained and lost so much. Every win come with a loss. I won't get into it. Distance comes and grows the rust. Walking past somebody who I used to think had what I'm doing. Find your place. It's not with me. I know your space. It's not with me. So one-sided. You keep trying to convince me, but you won't get a shred of my reliance.